This is solving equations practice number 3. In this one right here, we have the equation 2x minus 4 equals 8. I will draw my line down, dotted line here, and I do this so that I can separate the two sides of the equal sign. The first thing we are always going to do, we are going to do addition and subtraction. Well, I'm going to look. Here's my x all by itself. What's on the same side of the equation with it that I can add or subtract? Right here, there's a minus 4. So I'm going to come down here and do the opposite. So I'm going to add 4 to each side, because what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Now, these cancel, and I get 2x equals 12, because 8 plus 4 is 12. Now, this says 2 times x. The next thing we're going to do is either divide or multiply. Right here, 2 times x. The opposite of times is divide. So I'm going to divide each side by 2. Let me give myself a little bit more room. Kind of went a little bit too far here. Now, 2 divided by 2 is 1. And I get x equals 12 divided by 2 is 6. I will box my answer. The next one. Here's my next problem. Pause the video, come back and see how you did. I'm going to draw my dotted line right here for my equal sign. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look here and figure out what's on the same side with the x. I've got a minus 4, so I do the opposite and I add 4 to each side, because what I do to one side I have to do to the other. These cancel. I have negative x. Now don't leave off that negative. That'll be one of the biggest mistakes, is to leave off that negative. And that equals 6 plus 4 is 10. Now we're not done, because the x cannot stay negative. So this is the same as negative 1. I will divide each side by negative 1. Now a negative divided by a negative is a positive. I get x equals 10 divided by negative 1 is negative 10. And box my answer. The next one, right here, pause the video, come back and see how you did. I'm going to draw my dotted line right here. Now, I need to get x by itself. This is x divided by 3 minus 4 equals 7. Remember, the first thing we're going to do is we're either going to do addition or subtraction. So on this side where the x is, the first thing I see is a minus 4. So I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to add 4 to each side. Now I come over here, these cancel. I get x divided by 3 equals 7 plus 4 is 11. The next thing I need to do is multiplication or division. Well, this says x divided by 3, the opposite of divide. I will multiply each side by 3. Now, by doing that, these two cancel out. I get x equals 11 times 3 is 33. And I will box my answer. The next one, pause the video, come back and see how you did. I'm going to draw my dotted line. Remember step 1, addition and subtraction. Well, here's my x right here. What do I do to get this by itself? I have a plus 6 I got to get rid of. So I'm going to subtract 6, and what I do to one side, I do to the other. These cancel. I get negative 3x equals 6 minus 6 is 0. Now the second step is multiplication or division. Well, right here, negative 3 times negative 3 times x. The opposite is I'm going to divide by negative 3. Some people get stuck and they just leave this off. 0 is a good number, so understand that that does stay there. Now this, a negative divided by negative, is a positive. That's a positive 1x. And that equals 0 divided by anything is 0. And I will box my answer. The next one, pause the video, you can come back and see how you did. Right here, I'm going to draw my dotted line. First thing I'm going to do, x is over on this side now. Well, that's fine. I'm still doing addition and subtraction. I've got a positive 14, so I'm going to subtract 14 from each side. And right here, I have negative 21 equals, right here I've got 21x. 21 times x, the opposite of times is divide. I'll divide each side by 21. Well, now I have negative 21 divided by 21 is negative 1 equals x. The answer can be written like this, or you can flip it around. X equals negative 1. Still means the same thing. The next thing, here's the next one. I'd pause the video, come back and see how you did. First thing I will do is look for my x. All right, what's on this side that I can add or subtract? I've got a minus 8, so I'm going to add 8 to each side. These cancel, and I have negative 16x equals negative 40 plus 8. When the signs are opposite, you subtract, and you take the sign of the larger. Well, what do I mean? Well, what's 40 minus 8? It's 32. And then since the 40 is the bigger number and it's negative, you leave it as negative. That's because there's 40 negatives and 8 positives. And if you canceled out 8 of those negatives, you're left with 32 negatives. Next, it says negative 16 times x, the opposite of times. I'm going to divide by negative 16. X equals negative 32 divided by negative 16 is positive 2. Next one. Pause the video, come back and see how you did. I'm going to draw my dotted line. First thing I look for is addition or subtraction. Right here I've got a positive 2. I'm going to subtract 2 from each side. By doing that, these cancel. I get negative 8x equals negative 24. Now, why did that happen? Well, I've got 22 negatives, and I have 2 more negatives. That means I've got 24 total. Or, if you think about it like this, if the signs are the same, you can add them together and just take the sign of what they both are. So they're both negatives, so add them together, and you get 24. Right here, I'm going to divide by negative 8. You have to divide by exactly what's right here, and I do that to both sides. And negative divided by negative is a positive. These cancel, and I get 8 equals negative 24 divided by negative 8 is positive 3. Next, pause the video and come back and see how you did. Draw my dotted line. I will find, here's the positive 4, so I'm going to add or subtract. So I got to subtract 4 from each side. These cancel. Don't leave off the negative. I have negative 2x equals 16 negatives and 4 negatives is negative 20. Right here, I divide by negative 2. X, because negative divided by negative is a positive. 2's cancel out. Right here, I get a positive 10. Next one. Now this one says R. Okay, well that shouldn't confuse you because R, X, Y, Z, doesn't matter what letter you use, you're always going to do the same thing. So right here, I'm going to add 3 to each side. These cancel. I get 4R equals negative 3 plus 3 is 0. 4 times R. The opposite of times is divide, so I will divide each side by R, not by R, by 4. R equals 0 divided by 4 is 0. Remember, 0 is a good number. Next, we have number 10. I think this might be the last one. Sure is. So here's the last one in the video. Pause the video and come back and see how you did. First thing you should have done was subtracted 1 from each side. I get negative 3x, don't forget that negative, equals negative 17 minus 1. So I've got 17 negatives and 1 negative, negative 18. I'm going to divide by negative 3. I get x equals 6. There's your answer.